Have you ever wondered why your parents want you to go to school? They might not be able to clearly articulate it as I, but this is the reason. In the prehistoric days, school was a thing. Although you're walking miles to college, but the stares of the onlookers and villagers powers your soul. Yes, when you get to school, you face racial and tribal bigotry, but you would face all of that with pride and joy because school was a privilege. And when those highly educated individuals come back to the village, they hit your parents with, "Get away from here, bloody civilian." And your illiterate parents go, "What do you mean?" Also coupled with the fact that in those days, the government would seek advice from academicians. What policies do we enact? What's the best thing for our economy? And they would seek all kinds of counsel from those highly educated individuals. Although that's not the case tonight or in this day and age. But it's because your illiterate parents or their grandparents rather, it cost them a lot of opportunities. It cost them fortune. And you know, in those days, this idea that you could educate yourself online was totally unheard of. In fact, the internet didn't exist at that point. So information wasn't as ubiquitous as it currently is. And your parents vowed to themselves, if I have to carry trash so that my child will be educated, I will do it. And now what do we have to do? You guys. I was speaking to a very big established businessman. He was trying to give me advice on why I should focus on studies, why I should go to school and get a job, that conventional route. Yes, he didn't solely or he didn't heavily emphasize the idea of getting a job, but the sole purpose or the focus of that conversation was to go to school. He shared a story. He said while he was in school, he knew how hard his parents struggled for his tuition fees. At that time, he was hanging around with bad friends, bad individuals, people who were deterring his graduation. He decided to start a campaign because he didn't want to give up that friend and he also didn't want to fail. He started this movement. You're a big boy if only you graduate. So he sold that idea to his friends and peer groups, putting him in a position or giving him legal ground to read and study without looking like a fucking dog. But the point I'm trying to highlight is you see this consistent thread run across the conversation of millennials and old people, school, 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 because they themselves still believe or still have this flawed idea that going to school is a privilege, and we know it's not, which we'll talk about in a minute. Ever been in a conversation with an elderly person or see him get into an argument? What's the first thing here? You can't tell me this is wrong. I went to school. You don't tell me like this. I went to school. Imagine you and I in a conversation and I go, whoa, 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 I went to school. You, what? Alright. Because it's common sense. School is ubiquitous. School doesn't guarantee success in this day and age. But to them, they still have this idea that school is something of prestige and is equivalent to your success, which is not the case, as you and I know. Also, one of the reasons this idea of going to school and making it the sole purpose of success or the only guarantee for your sex is flawed, for your success is flawed. How many people were in your class? Do you have that number? How many people will graduate from your set? Do you have that number? Maybe 1,000 from that school across various departments. So, how many universities are there in your local region? Hundreds. How many universities are there in your country in general? So, if we have millions of people graduating with a piece of paper saying, I went through X experience, employ me. And it's this paradox where you need a job to get experience, but to get a job, you need experience. So you are in the middle of a dilemma. You are God, whichever side you turn to. And it's like basic economics will tell us the higher the supply, the lesser the demand. So they are printing millions of certificates annually. What then becomes your distinction? Do you still believe that going to school and getting a piece of paper that says you graduate with a fucking score decided by some academicians who have no drive, no business, can't even run a fucking fruit stand if given the opportunity, decides a CEO of a publicly trading company in the making, an entrepreneur, decides what and what not you can do. But if the supply of the certificate is high, guess what? Demand plummeted. So you also have to carve your path while you're in school. Do not depend solely on that certificate. This is what leaves people frustrated. This is what divides family. Because at the end of the road, you followed your parents' advice. You went to school. You were a good kid, but you didn't get a job. Now you're roaming around the street, blaming parents, blaming God, pointing fingers at wealthy people. It doesn't work. So become financially literate. Start a side hustle in school and you'll be fine. As always, friends, it's a pleasure speaking to you. See you in the next one.